There are a lot of reasons to go into the office. Well, I don't know about a lot. The creative process, right? But it turns out the ability to do actual accidental conversations, right? I hear that all the time. Although it turns out most companies are highly distributed and it's super freaking hard to have an accidental in-person conversation. Why? Because half my team's in Singapore, right? And so it's not like that's going to happen. And there are other reasons that people don't want to go to the office. If you are in any kind of minority, or you have any appearance issue, or you have a health issue, or you have some behavioral quirks, or you're loud and annoying like me and nobody can sit in the office next to me, right? Like there's just a bunch of things that go on in the office, and people pick at each other, and they do it either passively or aggressively, or passive aggressively. I guess that's anyway. And right, and so people dread go back to the office, right? And so the question is, why are we going into the office? In some places you got to. If you're doing a warehouse, you got to go in. But man, you know what kind of interpersonal problems you have in those places, right? And it's because people don't want to put up with each other, and the current political climate hasn't helped that. And so the question is really, what's better for people's mental health, and how would you expect this to work? So, you know, like I said, if it's appearance, if it's gender, you can. I worked in an office, a highfalutin office, where a woman was told she shouldn't go to a trade show because nobody would be there to feed her husband, right? That was only like 3 years ago, man. I use this story all the time because it blows my mind. I was at a place a couple years back, and we had a person who was told they needed to eat different food so that and go out to eat with the other members and eat the same food because it was weird that they were different, and a VP backed them up, right? Like, so you have all kinds of stuff. We had people that were complaining that there were Confederate statues in front of our building and they were black, and I could totally see that. And there were people like, I don't understand why that is. They're just statues out front. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not to be in that's a political thing, but not really, right? That is a treating people right kind of problem. And so there's a lot of places in the office where people don't treat each other right. And if I don't have to go in the office, I'm way more separated from that. I am way less involved in office politics and other personality issues if I'm not there, and it's a lot less stressful. So I get, if you're a boss, you want to see everybody in the office, assuming they're not all distributed in other locations. But the reality is, we hire people all over the place, and we also don't necessarily defend people in the office to make the office as friendly as possible. And there are people who are philosophically completely opposed to do that and feel like everybody should conform. And that makes for an unhappy workplace and unhappy people. So there are cases where work from home is great, or where you can't do it. And there are cases where RTO, return to office, is great. And there are cases where RTO is exactly the wrong thing to happen, because if you're not going to be able to manage the microaggressions that people do against each other, picking at each other all the time, then you're going to end up with an unhappy environment that doesn't have to happen if people aren't there. Either way, I hope you get to work in the environment that you want to.